Good morning. Let's give folks another minute to trickle in and we'll get started soon. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Snowflake Hours with Return Path, the expert in deliverability, helping marketers drive revenue through email. Return Path offers unique applications to optimize email marketing programs and expert guidance to drive results for increased revenue. Our guest today is Brianna Connolly. Brianna joins us from Return Path, where she is the Senior Manager of Data Analytics, which houses both data science and data engineering. Her teams are responsible for creating and delivering analytics solutions to their customers to solve their email deliverability problems. Snowflake was engaged with Return Path to help them quickly access their data assets. All the typical processes and querying tools were slow, complex, and took a large amount of processing time. Snowflake opened the door to intentional data access and created a simple solution for them to unite all of their data. My name is Jeannie Liu. I'm a product marketing manager here at Snowflake. I'll be the moderator for today's event. As you may already know, office hours are designed for attendees to hear directly from customers about their data warehousing journey. More importantly, it's a time to get all of your questions answered. There are 3 quick housekeeping items to keep in mind. 1 is if you have any tech difficulties, please chat us in the console. 2 is we will hold all questions until the very end, but do chat us throughout the presentation. And finally, the slide deck and recording will be made available upon the completion of the session. Brianna, I'm personally looking forward to hearing your presentation and seeing how Snowflake allowed your team to unite all of your data. I know there's a lot to cover here, so without further ado, Brianna, off to you.
Thank you so much, Judy. Hello, everyone. I am Brianna Connolly from Return Path. We've been using Snowflake for about a year and a half now, and we've seen a lot of value. And I'm excited to kind of walk you through how we've used it and then answer questions that you might have about what we've done and what we have for the future. So as Jeannie kind of introed, we are experts in email deliverability. We are looking at hundreds of millions of email events per day, and we have data everywhere coming from the physical servers. We had it in all kinds of different databases, all kinds of different storage places, and it was all over the place. And the thing about all of our data is that we are able to tell really unique and diverse stories to our clients that nobody else in industry can. We've accumulated data over the last 18 years from lots of different sources, and so we use that to be able to drive the results for our clients in ways that nobody in our industry can do. So of course, from a data perspective, that was where we had a lot of challenges moving into the cloud and also just finally figuring out how we could kind of bring all of our data together in one place that made sense. I'm sure as many of you are familiar, it becomes really complex when we talk across tools, across databases, across how products, everything can access the data. So our scenario and situation was we needed to create the affordable and effective location and standard environment for all of our aggregated data and then for our ETL process. Our hugest pain points were that it was really complex to integrate data, especially if we had to be moving it around from location to location. If it lived in a special box somewhere, how are we going to access that? What was going to happen? Plus, since we always have been truly in big data, we were dealing with expensive compute times. And if we didn't want it to be super expensive, we had to wait forever. So we're talking hours long generation to get queries. We're talking about our processes just taking a long, long time to get results. it was very, very frustrating. And so what we wanted to be able to do, and this is why we did engage with Snowflake, is we wanted to be able to bring all of our data into an effective space, and then we wanted to be able to access it quickly. One of the team members on my team, this quote from her, Leah Palmer, she really liked it because the ramp-up period was so short. We've used other tools, we've used other languages, and we've adopted other production processes that have taken a lot of time, as well as the errors or anything coming out of them were nonsensical. We had to spend even more time debugging that. So this was something that my team, who is not a team of DBAs, has never been a team of DBAs or even really data architects, were able to jump in and manage and own this in a way that we've seen mass success. So currently, this is what our workflow looks like using Snowflake. So we're able to get data from our partners, and also we're able to get event level data from our email apps that we're syncing from our users. We're using different ETL process to drive that in and out of S3. And then we are copying this and moving it to Snowflake so that we can really easily and simply unite our data. So for once, we have data that is across all these different locations, all these different sources that we've never been able to easily complete a story with. Or if we did in the past, it was kind of an ad hoc one-time thing, one of those annual reports that took a month to generate. And then we couldn't do it again. It was too costly, too expensive, too cumbersome. So we were able to get it all into Snowflake. And from this, we were able to start enhancing our performance speed. And we were waiting, an hour or two for queries or even, Spark commands to run on some of this data. And when you're in a meeting and somebody needs a quick answer, in the past, that could not happen. Even spinning up a cluster in some of our other technologies takes 10 minutes, and then add the hour or two querying time. And, you would always be giving people data kind of after the fact. So with Snowflake, we've been able to hook it up to a lot of amazing things. One of the great things in terms of the speed that we've seen is we've been able to hook this up to our internal apps and tools, and we've been able to give that to our stakeholders so that they can self-serve and run queries that would traditionally really slow down my analytics team. So we want them to be able to have quick access, that they can be on the phone with a client and suddenly, get real-time data to share. We've also been able to connect SageMaker models and processes to Snowflake so that we can be making recommendations for machine learning models and passing those recommendations to our clients. The infrastructure became really clear for us in terms of how we could manage cost, how we could kind of visualize what we're doing and what is the compute happening inside of Snowflake. So that was really easy. And then, there is so much amazing documentation and support in terms of connecting to other tools and technology. We have Snowflake connected to so many different tools, lots of different infrastructure. We're using Airflow to kind of orchestrate amazing ways that we can push our data assets to product and to downstream consumers very quickly. So that is, it's just so seamless. Again, our situation before, I highlighted this, we were spending an hour or two just to get a Hive query to run. We were overusing Spark in ways that we didn't need to. We weren't doing distributed work for most of our use cases. And we were also being forced into models where it was really expensive to create any account to even view the data. So, it would cost quite a bit for somebody to access the data, and then they would have to wait. It was never real time. And again, a huge component of this was that a huge part of our business couldn't even access any of these tools or queries or technologies prior to bringing on Snowflake because they weren't technical. We could simply not hand somebody a lot of the technology that we had to use. We had to do so much pre-processing, setting up, and kind of a very intensive guardrail experience, which of course, I'm sure most of you are thinking this takes months. It would, right? To even give a report that became interactive would take forever because we had to go through all of this process. And of course, once you go through that, then it becomes less malleable for the end user. So being able to use Snowflake now, we've been able to speed up query times to less than a minute. We can get all of our technical and non-technical business users answers in just seconds. We're able to give free data access using other tools. So right now we do some things in RStudio using their Shiny app. And then we are actually leaping into using Looker as well. But the easy part is that we've been able to deploy results very quickly. In the past, it would take a significant amount of time to do this. So not only are our processing times cut down significantly, but actually delivering the deliverable has also rapidly sped up. So, the other problem that we had is that my team is a team of 7, and it's small, and we're stretched between a lot of different purposes and functions in our data engineering group. So this is just one tool, one way that we can surface and join our data, but we manage a lot of other things. So we needed to be able to create an experience for our products and our business units to use Snowflake so that they could self-manage, so that we could teach them to fish in a way. When we entered into this, what we were coming out of was lots of different databases and languages and, RDS, all kinds of things that there was no standardization across. Somebody chose something because, they heard about it and wanted to use it. Okay, great. But how are we going to make these databases talk to each other? How are we going to query across these now? What does that look like? None of that was happening. We had no cost visibility. I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing this as you migrate to the cloud. It just seems terrifying because you can't figure out exactly where cost comes from. And then all along the way, we did not and could not afford to stifle any innovation, right? I didn't want my team to become a bottleneck then to innovation for our client teams, our product teams, and most of all, my data science team. So, oops, it's skipping ahead for some reason. So we really had to use that. We had to figure out our model of how we would roll this out. So what we used was a really interesting guardrail experience in terms of roles and resource monitors. So we can help people. There's never going to be somebody doing an immense amount of spending or any sort of problems in the queries themselves, right? We're never going to get a surprise bill or anything like that. So we've set that up, and we've also made it so that we've been able to teach certain key point people in business units to self-serve and to be able to almost admin their own little warehouse that then we can support. So we're not stifling innovation, and we have our eyes on a lot of the costs and everything happening to make it more effective and, of course, drive bottom line. So my closing thoughts are, we now have our data in an intentional place. We can give access to the data to just about anybody, and that decreases conflict. We are starting to create standards of truth, and we're excited to be able to move forward with things like Looker and other BI tools that have been so easy to use. This is a huge one for me since I report directly to the CTO and our COO. Cost management. I at any time can pull cost metrics and know what our cost is going to be, and there's never any surprises, which has been wonderful. So with that, I believe Jeannie will ask me some questions, but please do feel free to ask questions.
Thanks, Brianna. Super informative, and we here at Snowflake really loved your presentation. So I'll kick it off. In slide 7, you mentioned bringing together your data nation. So basically copying and moving into Snowflake to unite all of your data. I think I know why that's important, and you did touch upon it, but if you could succinctly just summarize, was it, eliminating the need to spend time keeping multiple data repositories in sync? Like, what was the true value that you gleaned and got from this unification of data?
Yeah, I think obviously from a cost and business perspective, yes, we reduced redundancy across databases, and we're able to tell a consistent story for our business ROI and where that started to come in. We are now, after 18 years, being able to bring together data points and be able to look at them in cost-effective ways that we've never been able to do before. So for us, it has become a giant door opening of kind of innovation and opportunity, because for once we've been able to put everything into a space where we can now look at it and look at the landscape again and again, right? It's no longer kind of those monster reports that you would do once a year and then you wouldn't revisit it again. So it's been in all ways just absolutely amazing for us to have data in one space.
That's great to hear, especially as you mentioned after 18 years. So it's great that you're able to finally get the unification of data and quickly move forward. So related to that question, another question came in that said, did your actual cost of implementation vary widely? Was it less or more than your initial thoughts?
Yeah, so this is a great question because cost in the cloud is terrifying. We have other tools and vendors, and with our EC2 instances and AWS, I cross my fingers in a lot of places. But for Snowflake, it has always been just so clear in terms of how much data are you going to bring in? What is the general compute? And that's where, of course, when we were kind of going through the intro phase with you all at Snowflake, we were able to really figure out what that looked like. How much data were we going to be processing, backfilling, using to get accurate cost metrics? That was super simple. In terms of actual implementation, we have been able to become so efficient in how we use and process data in Snowflake that we're always trending far below what we expected to be doing. But it's because with the cost monitors and all of the new features like Snowpipe and Snowflake Share, we've been able to just reduce tons of cost in moments, right? We've made product recommendations that have saved them thousands of dollars a month. Purely by just looking, having the visibility and being able to look into it in a way that we can make recommendations of, oh, you should move to an extra small cluster instead of a small. It's been just so easy. And so I'll say, way below budget and what we planned on and what we thought we were going to be spending. But it's amazing because we continue to just put tons and tons of data and more value into it. So we've been really happy with all of the cost projections and then the actual monitoring and maintenance of it.
That's great, Brianna. And I'm just going to encourage the team to continue to ask these great questions. So there's two things I want to follow up on, Brianna. One is, how much data are you actually bringing in?
Oh my gosh. Well, we're bringing in across different products, definitely. We're syncing with some of our client data at the specific email event. So think for some giant senders, they're sending, not hundreds, but tens of millions of emails a day. And we're getting all the event level data for that. So daily we're processing that and kind of doing ETL in Snowflake. Then we're also getting all of our data across our partners as well as our internal apps. So we're using many gigabytes a day just to get it in the door. And then on top of that, we're running all kinds of analytics across it. So it's an immense amount of data. And again, in the past, we would have to use technologies like Hive and Hadoop, and it took forever for us to chug through any of that. And even still, sometimes we could not even get to it because the sizes were just so insane.
Yeah, it looks like you're working with tons and tons of data there. And the second part that you mentioned was Snowpipe. So for everyone on the line, Snowpipe it tackles both continuous loading for streaming data and serverless computing. So basically it serves as a pipeline for loading data into Snowflake. Brianna, would you mind talking about your use of Snowpipe and what that's enabled you to do?
Yes. So we actually were using, prior to using Snowpipe, we were just using like a table alter, table insert statement. We have a product that's using Snowflake to do its ETL process and kind of aggregating data all throughout the day. It's seeing hundreds of millions of events. So it was doing a lot of inserts over the day. And when we started to really look at how could we improve costs there, we were aware that we had this new feature with Snowpipe. And so we decided to implement it. It took less than a day to actually switch over from the previous process to using Snowpipe on the streaming data. And it was able to save, again, for this specific product, thousands of dollars a month in computing. And it's much more efficient. They're no longer doing these tiny little insert statements that we're computing all throughout the day. And it just has been awesome. We're excited to attach more streaming data into it and use that process moving forward.
That's great, Brianna. So let's shift gears here as the flavor of questions from the audience is coming towards previous tools. So one question in particular was, prior to using Snowflake, what popular RDBMS tool were you using?
Yeah, so we were using a lot of different things at Return Path. We also use Qubole, but again, we're limited by Hive and Hadoop in that space, and also using Spark. It was just overkill in some of the things that we needed to look at. So that's one tool that we have, but now we're using Snowflake to do the typical database work that we need. We also in the past have used lots of other different flavors of database: Redshift, MongoDB, PSQL, MySQL, basically anything and everything. We also still use Oracle and are looking to migrate that out into Snowflake in spaces where we can over the next bit. So we're using a ton, and that's where, with the speed and efficiency of this, and I will say the huge win is the connection capabilities of Snowflake. We have no problem connecting this to anything and everything in ways that we can constantly push and pull data into and out of it. And it's been a game changer. We've never had something so simply be able to be inserted into a process and then again be that kind of source of truth across all of these different sources.
Great. And you had mentioned 3 things that you got from Snowflake among all the other great just overall simplicity. One was you were able to speed up query times. The second was you were able to get tech and non-technical users data in seconds. And then you talked about the deployment. But what other tools did you consider for your data warehouse solution, and why ultimately Snowflake?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we had been using Qubole prior, and it just wasn't meeting our needs in terms of speed. We were still in that same old world of having to do immense, long, drug-out ETL process to get something into a shape where it could then be quickly queried somewhere. So that was just dragging things out, both in terms of production time in development, and then also, it has to run sometimes. And we're an international company. If we're running something in the middle of the night, that still is going to impact offices in Europe and in Australia. So that's where, it just wasn't meeting our needs. This kind of lengthy, bloated out ETL process using Hive and Hadoop, it wasn't working anymore. And that's really where this came in, and just the speed of this was something that we knew we'd never seen before. I mean, this truly is something in the years of big data that I've been involved in, getting results back in seconds, that was not happening anymore. So we were all just clamoring when we saw how fast it could actually process queries for us.
Great, Brianna. Now let's dive into the product. So we have a handful of questions about the product. The first is, so here at Snowflake, we talk about loading all your data, and whether that's semi-structured or structured data, Snowflake can handle all. So are you currently bringing in JSON data, and how is the flattening of the JSON data to structured tables working out for you?
It's great. We're actually bringing in JSON, Avro, CSV. We're also making API calls from our Salesforce tool, and we're doing that as well. And across all of them, it is insanely simple. I'm at a senior manager level, so you know what that means. It means that I come in and make messes for my team, and I'm even able to upload any sort of data into our development environments and then query it. So it is hands down the easiest way to, or the easiest tool I've ever used to be able to dump data in and then be able to use it moments later.
That's great. And Brianna, you had touched upon this earlier, but you talked about cost models. So with Snowflake, are you able to easily look at your total cost of ownership, and is the UI that you interact with, is it pretty straightforward? Is it transparent in giving you the TCO that you need?
Oh, 100%. What we did, and this is another reason why I love Snowflake is nothing is ever set in stone in a way that you're painted into the corner. With other databases, with other processes, that happens, right? It starts to grow organically, and then you realize, oh no, now we can't back out of this, right? We're constantly redefining what our Snowflake structure looks like, what's accessing it, what we're doing, and it's become so fluid to be able to change it as our needs grow, as more users come to it, as more data comes in. So we're constantly kind of making adjustments. Where it's been the most helpful for us is that in terms of cost, we went from just a few users, a few use cases, to now we have products and teams across it. So what we did is we backed up, and Nika, who had a quote in this deck earlier, she actually created different roles, users, and warehouses so that we can break down costs based on project or product. And then from that, we're able to really drill into the cost monitors. We set those up to let us know at different frequencies when we've hit what our expected capacity would be, so that then we're able to go work with a team to figure out what's going on. If they, it's natural growth, awesome, let's adjust our capacity and our credit quotas. Or, in the case of we've helped products save lots of money by just making adjustments. Using Snowpipe, for instance, was a huge one. Also downgrading from a small to extra small cluster. We've been able to see those kinds of granular improvements because it's so easy. And the UI that we use is the one that you provide us all. And we just go into the resource monitor tab, and that's where we can get a good view of where cost is coming from. And then we can drill down further really easily into what might be happening across every warehouse. And we can really get to something if it's kind of out of control, honestly, within the day. We're never catching something the next month of, oh no, we didn't realize that was happening.
That's great, Brianna. And just for everyone on the line, we talk about pay-as-you-go. This is exactly what we mean, is you can suspend warehouses as you don't use them or bring them up, and auto-suspend after an hour if you know it's not going to be used. So it's good to see that there's definitely a total cost of ownership trending towards the right way. Related to that, Brianna, you had mentioned a teammate in your quote. So how has the actual skill level and role, how have the roles changed when migrating to Snowflake?
Yeah, so again, we weren't a team of DBAs. I actually took over this team back in April, and we've been able to make all of these improvements just in the last 6 months. The skill level, they're a rather junior team, so not teams that have had intense experience with databases or adminning these kinds of things. They've been able to take on ownership, be able to allow access for it, and then be able to make changes as we go along and learn. And I recently hired a wonderful data engineering manager that now will come in and really give this the true love and intention that we can actually take it to its maximum level, be able to hook it up to other things and BI tools. But for the last year and a half, it's been a really junior team who's seen immense success in owning this. And it's empowered products, individual technical account managers, our executive team. Like, this is something that has driven just value and answers everywhere.
Brianna, that's so great to hear. For everyone on the line, we are coming up on 10:30, but there are two last questions that I think are actually very interesting. So let's shift gears from the product now into going forward. What's next for Return Path in your usage of Snowflake?
Yeah, so what's next for us is probably a little bit of a mini back-end architecture makeover. And that's where it's so easy. We continually do this. I think it's important that we make adjustments and change things as we get more and more data in there, as more and more people are using Snowflake. So that's going to happen. Again, my new amazing data engineering manager, Amy Anthony, is going to lead the charge there. And then we're also diving into the world of connecting this to true BI tools like Looker. And that's where our entire organization, from marketing to sales to our executive team and our data science team, are beyond excited to be able to do insanely quick visualizations, because it's just something we've never been able to create something so quickly. Even in our demos of getting data loaded into Snowflake and then heat maps generated by our COO, like we can do that now in several hours. And that's a world where we've never had something so quick.
That's great, Brianna. One last question came in. I do think it's important, so let's address it. So it looks like you were using Hadoop, and then I don't know if you're using Hadoop now and also for different applications and using Snowflake as well, but how has the flavor of the applications changed, if at all, from moving from Hadoop to Snowflake?
Yeah, I mean, with the migration to the cloud, a lot of things kind of got shifted and tilted. I will say, in terms of us using Snowflake in places where traditionally we might have used Hive or Hadoop, it's been really easy in deployment. We're no longer having to kind of build these different clusters and manage that. It gets really complex on the deployment side. And so we've been able to bypass that by just using Snowflake and running things through Snowflake and having our apps actually go query Snowflake. So that's been wonderful and easy. I will say we still do use Hive and Hadoop for some legacy processes, but it's phasing out as we continue to kind of adopt new technology. We just realize we can be far more effective and fast without really bloating cost. So for us, I will say the thing that it's changed in terms of application is that now we can look at other third-party tools and applications that in the past, given the size of our data and some of the slow process and lag times, we could have never used before. Like a BI tool, we have never been successful in implementing a BI tool because in the past, it would take forever. Nobody wants to sit and wait 15 minutes to get their information in a BI tool. So that's where now we can start to adopt things and get immediate answers. And that's going to open so many doors here. We're all just excited for that.
That's great, Brianna. So I'll close it out with some final thoughts. It was really interesting to see how Snowflake enabled return path to unite data, how Snowpipe was a big enabler of you guys piping in data. It was really actually interesting to see how you're able to get really clear visibility into your total cost of ownership. And I think for the audience, they were really interested in seeing the previous tools you used and early successes and also your future for return path. So I'd like to close it out. There are no other questions coming in, but if there are others that you'd like to see, please do email us separately. Brianna, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks again, and we wish Return Path more success.
Well,
thank you, everyone.
So
have a great day. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.